Hey everybody, welcome to the DYL Pickle Movie Network. I am Dylan Randazzo. If you see the circles under my eyes, if you see the life drained from me, it is because this is the busiest week of the year. This is the craziest week of the year, which is usually how I feel every year, but this year in particular is crazier than I've ever seen an Oscars race. That is because for the first time ever, we have pretty much a 50-50 coin flip in like three above the line categories, one of which is a 3-horse race for supporting actress. We don't know who's going to win Best Picture because of this surge of Sinner's Passion. Is it a surge, though, because it's been around this whole year? But the frontrunner, one battle after another, is also not losing steam. So this is going to be one of the most hectic, most intense, most draining, most frustrating, and agonizing Oscar predictions videos yet. I will tell you, I will give you the safe pick, the front runner in each category. So if you want to play it safe, if you want to go up to your Oscar ballot and win your pool, going with the front runner, going with the predicted nominee is always a safe way to go. But here's the thing. Every year there are upsets, and it's really just about predicting the right upsets. Now, what I could do is just go down the line and pick all the safe bets. I could do that, but this would only be a 15-minute video if that were the case. But I like to have fun. You know, this is my time of year. This is my Super Bowl. So why not have some no guts, no glory picks here? Why should I always just go with the convention? Especially when there's categories like shorts where we really don't have anything to go off of but guts. I think this is what makes Oscar season fun, is having those bold predictions. And then if you're wrong, everyone can laugh at you and everyone can say, I got 19, you got 18 right, ha ha ha. And it really doesn't matter at the end of the day because you still got a bunch right. Because every normie on the street who's not even watching these precursors and all these shows is probably going to pick 2 correctly of the whole night. But my point, why not just have fun? Because then when you do get those upsets right, it's a fun bragging right that you can have for your friends. And if you get nothing right, if you go 0 for 24, at least you had fun engaging with the ceremony, mulling these films over in your head, because at the end of the day, that is what Oscars are here to do. They are here to get conversation built around these films, especially the films that aren't as widely seen. You know, you're not getting Marvel films every year in your Best Picture slate. You only got one, and that was in 2018. We're talking about movies that maybe the general public hasn't heard or seen of. Like, some people haven't seen The Secret Agent, some people haven't seen Sentimental Value, but because they're both international films in Best Picture, maybe more people are going to check it out. And at the end of the day, I think that is where we win. That is where everyone wins. So no matter how many you get right, how many you get wrong, you can follow me, but don't blame me if you're wrong. But if you get it all right, you can thank me, because that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to break down the stats, here to break down all the precursors, and talk about who I think is going to win all of these Oscar nominations come tonight. That's right, because you're getting this Sunday morning. I'm doing this bright and early. You still have time to fill out your polls, to go on Gold Derby, to go on Award Expert, to get your picks locked in, get those polls in. And hey, if you bet in a betting state, bet responsibly, gamble responsibly, but you can win money on these, especially if you have a gut of an upset. You want to put $1 or $2 on the upset, you might win $5 or $10. That's pretty cool, right? I'm not advocating for gambling, but if you love gambling, maybe try it. It's fun. Again, wherever you find enjoyment in the Oscars, in this whole beautiful journey that has taken way too long, because we're already halfway through March, and this time last year we already knew Anora had the Oscar and it went to bed, and we were already looking forward to this year. This is a long season and I'm drained, but here I am to deliver my Oscar nomination predictions for the winners of the Academy Awards. I believe it's the 98th, 99th. We're almost at 100. Isn't that crazy? But I just want to break it down into some tiers. I'm going to start with the category that no one really knows anything about, which is casting. And then from there, I have my locks. I have 7 categories that are locked. I have 7 categories that are pretty close to locked. I have 4 categories where there is a front runner, but I could definitely see an upset brewing. And then for some of those categories, I actually did go with the upset. For some of them, I played it a little safer. And then there are 2 categories that I genuinely think are 50-50. And it could go one way, it could go the other, and you can literally check my Gold Derby and my Awards Expert app to see if I make that change at the very last minute. Then there are 2 categories that I say WTF for, which are 2 short films that I genuinely don't know what to do with, because there's like 2, 3, 4 contenders, maybe even 5. And then we save supporting actress for last, because supporting actress this year is giving me the most anxiety of any category in this crop. So let us go to the top. Let us start with this casting award, because here's the thing. We don't know where they're going to go with casting. We have no idea, because this is a brand new category, and that's what makes it so fun. That's what makes it so fresh, and we can just go off of what everyone else is saying. which is Sinners. This should be Sinners. Sinners and One Battle After Another are going to have a really big night. Both films are going to have a big night. Looking at precursors, Sinners won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Casting or Best Ensemble, I guess. It won the SAG Award for Best Ensemble, and it did win the Casting Society Association. I think that's what CSA stands for. The Casting Guild, basically. But One Battle After Another, oddly, not in the Casting Guild nominations. Neither was Secret Agent. So we're really looking at Marty Supreme, Hamnet as these potential spoilers. Marty Supreme also nominated for the BAFTA and Critics' Choice for this category. I do think Marty Supreme could be a winner here if, we're just throwing precursors out the window, because we really don't know how this category operates on the night. This is a brand new category. I think Marty Supreme could be a fun upset pick, but I'm going to go with the front runner here. I'm going to go with the one that the betting markets are saying is the safest bet here, and that is Sinners for Best Casting. See, guys, that was easy. It only gets harder from here. But let's go to another locked category, and that is Best Actress. I think this one is pretty much locked up. It's Jessie Buckley's. I really don't think we need to spend much time on it. She won the BAFTA, she won Critics' Choice, she won Globe, she won SAG. That is literally everything. She swept the season. She's the critics leader, even though Rose Byrne got a bunch of wins early on in the season. I don't even think you can look for anyone else as an upset. I think it's also telling that, the only other contender here for number 2 is probably Rose Byrne, and she's not in a Best Picture nominated film, let alone a top 3 Best Picture contender. Because oddly, if for some reason One Battle After Another and Sinners split, somehow, I don't think that's how it works with a preferential ballot, but Hamnet is probably your number 3. So I think it's very telling that Hamnet is well loved, that Jessie Buckley will walk away with this award. Some other awards that I want to just lock right now: adapted screenplay, it's going to be One Battle After Another. If there's any debate on directing, they're going to play it safe. They're going to go with PTA here because PTA needs his Oscar. He's going to win his Oscar. He's probably going to win 2 or 3 Oscars on the night, but adapted screenplay, this has won BAFTA, Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, USC, WGA. This has everything you need. And then kind of going along the lines, original screenplay, we have Sinners being the front runner by a mile. It won BAFTA, it won Critics' Choice, it won WGA. The only thing it lost was Golden Globe, and that's because they combined original and adapted, and One Battle won. So the only weakness it has is Globe. I don't think that's weakness whatsoever. Another film that I think is just going to sweep here is Avatar in visual effects. I know we kind of jumped from screenplay to visual effects right into a tech nom, but looking at the VES Society, it won, I believe, it was nominated for 7 awards. I don't know if it won all 7, but it won big at the VES Society. It won the Critics' Choice. It won the BAFTA. Obviously, F1 and Sinners are the 2 Best Picture nominees here. I do think there is a world where one of these guaranteed locks for techs loses an award to Sinners. I don't think this is the one, though. I don't think this is the one that Avatar is going to lose, that Sinners is going to win, because I also think Sinners, despite it being my second favorite in the category, is a little more subtle. I don't think people realize how much visual effects is going on, especially with all the fire effects and, of course, the Michael B. Jordan twin stuff. I think if anything is going to spoil this, I think The Lost Bus is the next most flashy visual effects film. That's not even nominated for Best Picture. I think Avatar was closer to Best Picture than The Lost Bus was. So I think Avatar has everything it needs. Avatar Fire and Ash should be your best visual effects winner. And the last category, actually, we have 3 more that are pretty locked. I think directing is locked. I think directing here is going to be Paul Thomas Anderson. I know there are some pundits out there who are thinking if Sinners does have a bigger night than expected, that Ryan Coogler could win this. But if I'm an Academy member and you have the opportunity to get Paul Thomas Anderson his first Oscar, and you are any bit worried that he'll lose the screenplay award, you're just going to go all in on PTA. You're going to go in for director and screenplay, because those are direct awards that he would win single-handedly. And yes, it's probably going to result in him winning 2 awards, which I don't think is a problem for anyone. I don't think anyone's mad that he's going to win 2 awards. Yes, I would love to spread the wealth, but also Ryan Coogler is also winning original screenplay. So they're both going to win something at some point in the Oscar ceremony. Hopefully, their speeches are amazing. But who's going to make the second speech? I think it's going to be PTA, because I think people would rather not risk PTA going home empty-handed and splitting their votes. So I think they're just going to go all in, directing, screenplay. PTA should be winning this. He won BAFTA, Critics' Choice. He won the DGA, which is very telling, and he won Golden Globes. A few other categories that are locked. I think original score is going to be Sinners. I personally probably would have gone with One Battle After Another, but just looking at the stats, Sinners has BAFTA, Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, HMMA, SCL. It has all the precursors, all the guilds you could want for that category. The last category we can lock in is also animated feature. Now, I know because K-pop didn't qualify for Netflix's rules with BAFTA, K-pop didn't win the BAFTA. That's the only weakness we've seen of K-pop. My only worry is, because of that, are people still seeing the film? Yes, they are, because it's on Netflix. I mean, it's actually the most accessible of these five nominees. Yeah, I don't think K-pop should have any issue here. If there's any category that I think K-pop could get upset in, it's song. It's not going to be animated feature. It's had it on lock all season. It won the Annie Award. It won Critics' Choice. It won Golden Globe. It didn't win PGA. It didn't win BAFTA because it wasn't nominated at BAFTA. But again, that's a rules designation because it was on Netflix. It was a streaming film. It didn't play in enough theaters, I guess, to qualify for BAFTA. If that was the case for Oscars, it wouldn't even be nominated. So we don't have to worry about eligibility here. If it's nominated, it's eligible to win. So I think the big step was just making sure it was eligible and that it counted and that Netflix was going to put it on enough screens for people to count it toward the awards, and it did. So it's here. I think it's going to win. Now it's time to look at some of the categories that I call the pretty close to locked categories. These ones all have pretty significant frontrunners, but there is a chance that maybe in some world one or two of these lose to another bigger contender, like Sinners or One Battle After Another. So let's start actually with another K-pop award, which is original song. I think Golden is by far the frontrunner. It won the Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, HMMA for animated, the SCL for comedy musical. The only thing is that the HMMA and the SCL kind of split in categories. So the HMMA and SCL also went for I Lied to You. So I think if we're looking at precursors, it's actually a lot closer than we were led to believe it was. But I think just because Golden is just such a popular song, it's playing all over the radio. You know, you're not hearing I Lied to You in the radio as much as you are Golden. You know, Golden is nominated for a Grammy for Best Record of the Year. So I don't necessarily think this body is thinking along those lines completely. I think a lot of people just love Sinners so much that they're going to vote for everything Sinners under the sun. But I also think, like the sun, Golden just shines the brightest in just pop culture in general. And I just think it's such an earworm that even those who don't love the movie know about the song. They love the song. There's a reason it's nominated. And that's the thing with K-pop. A lot of people are like, is K-pop a little out of touch with the Academy? If it was out of touch with the Academy, it probably wouldn't get these two nominations. And as we've seen, the kind of fun bop does actually have a good advantage here. We saw it with, Not To for RRR. People were wondering, is that just too much of a fun, like, audience pick to win? And then it won. So I just think Golden's been the front runner all year. This could still go to Sinners. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to I Lied to You. But right now, I think original song, Golden is kind of shining brightest right now. But let's move on to three awards that are the Frankenstein awards of the night, starting with costume design. This is the one that everyone is saying it's going to be Frankenstein. I agree. It won BAFTA, Critics' Choice, and the Costumers Guild. The only thing is, yes, Sinners lurks in the wings. And I do think Sinners, again, if the Academy is going Sinners crazy, then I could see a world where one of these tech nominations, maybe for Frankenstein, goes to Sinners. But I think this is going to be the one that Frankenstein has locked no matter what. Yes, Ruthie Carter could win her third Oscar, which would be amazing for Sinners. But I just think Frankenstein, I also think, like, the quality quantity argument, it has just more costumes in general to choose from in Frankenstein. Sinners, it's really kind of everyone's wearing the one look through the film pretty much, maybe two looks. But for Frankenstein, everyone has many looks. I mean, Mia Goth has so many looks in that film. So I think costumes is pretty locked with Frankenstein. As for production design, again, you could see Sinners spoil. I think Sinners is number 2 in a lot of these categories, but I think Frankenstein is just way too strong. It has BAFTA, it has ADG, it has CCA, it has SDSA, which is the Set Designers Association. So I do think Frankenstein's pretty strong. I think this is another one that we can pretty much lock in. It's pretty close to locked, but again, I would not be surprised if Sinners pulls one out from Frankenstein. But makeup, another one where I can see Sinners pulling a surprise, or I think it's just going to be a very straightforward win here for Frankenstein. Frankenstein won the BAFTA, the Critics' Choice, and the MOA Guild, the MUAH. The thing is, Sinners also won some awards at the MUAH, so it definitely is probably a little bit closer than we think, but also Frankenstein, the makeup is such a highlight, such a centerpiece. I just rewatched this the other day, and I was kind of forgetting just how good the makeup was, and then I rewatched it, and I was like, yeah, no, the makeup is phenomenal. Whereas Sinners, it is a phenomenal makeup as well, but it is also very, not the biggest focus of the movie. A lot of people will pay attention to the music or the acting, whereas I think Frankenstein, a lot of people are just paying attention to the monster itself and the creation in this creature. So I do think right now Frankenstein is still the far and away favorite, but something in my bones just makes me think that one of these tech awards that everyone is kind of universally in agreement on is going to go a different way. It's just a matter of calling which one it is, and I will probably call which one it is, or at least which one I think is the most vulnerable a little bit later. What is also not vulnerable is cinematography. I thought there was a world where we could have seen like a bit of a more competitive race here, but really looking at it, the only film that hasn't beat that One Battle After Another hasn't beat is Train Dreams for Critics' Choice. Otherwise, One Battle After Another won BAFTA, it won the ASC and the BSC, which is the American Society of Cinematographers and the British Society of Cinematographers. So I think, we were just waiting and holding our breath for the ASC, and at the end of the day, Michael Bauman did win that for One Battle After Another. I think also, if you are the Best Picture frontrunner, I think there's a very good chance you have a very well filmed movie. And if you've been winning all the precursors, it just makes a lot of sense that cinematography would be pretty locked in here. And then film editing, kind of the same thing. It is One Battle After Another's to lose. It won the Ace Eddie win. It also won the BAFTA. It didn't win Critics' Choice. Critics' Choice went to F1, but I just don't see a world where F1 wins here, especially having lost the BAFTA and Ace. But the big spoiler here, again, it's Sinners. Sinners is also an Ace winner. They split it up between comedy and drama, and they put One Battle After Another in comedy and Sinners in drama, I think, or they split it up with drama and fantasy or whatever. But either way, One Battle and Sinners both have wins here with the Guild for editing. So I think there's also a chance where One Battle could lose and Sinners can win. But I think winning that BAFTA was kind of key for One Battle, also because we kind of see picture and editing going hand in hand. And while I do think picture's a lot closer than people want to admit, I do think One Battle After Another, having been the best picture frontrunner pretty much all year, I think a lot of the editing merit has been on its side because it's been such a strong film all year. And the final film category that I will say is pretty close to locked, and this one I've still wavered with a little bit, is supporting actor. Now, a lot of people have been kind of getting behind this Delroy Lindo come from behind with a steel chair shocker win here, kind of similarly to Marcia Gay Harden's Oscar win, where you didn't get anything. You didn't get BAFTA, Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, or SAG, but you're in a film that has a lot of passion, and you've made speeches despite not winning this award. I do see a world where Delroy Lindo could win. I actually have him at number 2. I think he's the second most likely because Delroy Lindo had a really emotional moment at the BAFTAs. We don't have to get into it right now, but obviously that big moment at the BAFTAs. And then again, when SAG awarded Sinners the prize, Delroy Lindo made the speech for Sinners. And I think that could help a lot, especially because Sean Penn, who was the front runner, Sean Penn, who won the BAFTA and the SAG, which is an almost unbeatable combo. And that's why I'm still predicting Sean Penn. But Sean Penn hasn't really been there to accept these awards. He was at the Globes, but he didn't win at the Globes. The Globes went with Stellan Skarsgård, who I thought was going to be stronger than he actually is, but Stellan Skarsgård missed SAG. He didn't win the BAFTA, which I thought he was the front runner at. Jacob Elordi thought he could surprise at the beginning of the season, but he only won Critics' Choice. And then Benicio del Toro, who is like the critic sweeper, didn't get any of these main industry awards. So this is a really kind of wide open race that I think Sean Penn, because he has the BAFTA and SAG, just has like cemented himself as the front runner. But I think the fact that Sean Penn hasn't been able to make any speeches could come back to bite him, because at the end of the day, these people are voting for who they want to win, who they want to accept a speech. Sean Penn's already won twice. You know, this would be his third win, and he might not even be there to accept it. I don't think he is going to be there to accept it. So while I do still think Sean Penn will win, also because One Battle After Another not getting any acting wins would be a little bit surprising if it is going to win Best Picture, I do think Sean Penn is going to get it, also because he is playing like an iconic villain role. And I feel like those iconic villain roles like Javier Bardem, Heath Ledger, Christoph Waltz, I think those win a lot. You know, J.K. Simmons, another example. If you're a really iconic villain, Robert Downey Jr., you know, you can keep the list going and going and going. If you play like a really iconic villain in a supporting role, chances are you're probably going to win, especially if you're in the Best Picture frontrunner. But I do think there's a world Delroy Lindo comes in with that steel chair, to quote Matt Chapman, my co-host for Frame Wreck, just because of the Sinner's passion and because he got to make that amazing speech at SAG when Sean Penn didn't even make a speech. But I still think Sean Penn's a front runner. If you want to play it safe, like me, you're picking Sean Penn here. Also because I just don't see a world if One Battle After Another is your front runner, and if it does win Best Picture, which right now I'm almost at a 50-50 for picture. But if you're going to go with One Battle After Another, you should probably predict it to win at least one acting award. It would be shocking if it was nominated for so many acting awards. 2 supporting actors, a supporting actress, a lead actor, and then not winning any of them. I feel like if you're going to win Best Picture, you're probably going to pick up an acting prize. And ultimately, that's what sold me on Sean Penn getting it. But if Sinners is going to win, if you're going all in on Sinners winning Best Picture, this could be a fun upset for you to pick. So if you're the guy in your Oscar pool who's picking Sinners to go all the way for all the gold, for all the glory, and you're not quite sold on Coogler beating PTA, this could be a cool spot where Delroy Lindo comes in and makes a big surprise win. I do think a lot of people are manifesting it more than they actually think it's actually going to happen, but I would love to see it happen. I love Delroy Lindo. He's a very overlooked actor in the industry, I believe. Like, this is finally when he's getting his glory and his due. He should have already been an Oscar winner for Da 5 Bloods, but let us move on now. So now let's move on to the categories, the 4 films that I think could be upsets, like are genuinely in the line of an upset city territory. One that I thought was going to be a potential upset, I think I've definitely come around a bit more on there being a definitive frontrunner, is Best Actor, actually. I do think if you had asked me a week ago, I would have said, you know what, Michael B. Jordan's the front runner, but I mean, I could still see a world where Chalamet gets it, still see a world where Leo even comes in and surprises, or Wagner Moura comes in and surprises, even Ethan Hawke. I thought this was a very close potential five-way race about a week ago. Also, because if you look at who's won the precursors, Michael B. Jordan did win the SAG, but Chalamet won the Globe, Wagner Moura won the Globe, Chalamet won Critics' Choice, but then also One Battle After Another and Sinners are the two big Best Picture plays. And, you know, Robert Aramayo won the BAFTA. So the BAFTA is kind of the big thing that's throwing this all for a loop, which is why I think a lot of people have settled on Michael B. Jordan being the winner here for Sinners, only because SAG was the most recent award show. We'll talk about that when we get to Best Supporting Actress and we break it down pros and cons, because I have a whole chart for it. But, you know, if you're looking at SAG, it is the most recent ceremony right before voting ends, and Michael B. Jordan won huge. It was a big emotional moment. Viola Davis was freaking out. She was so excited. Now, the one thing that made me scared about Michael B. Jordan winning here is the reason why I have it in this category of like could really be looking at upset city, is because no one has won this award with just SAG alone. But even looking at that stat, though, there has been at least one other person who's won BAFTA. And I think that's the thing we have to look at. If any of these guys had won BAFTA, except for Michael B. Jordan, I'd probably predict them. But the thing is, none of these guys won BAFTA. So now we kind of have to throw that single SAG thing out the window, because we don't know who number 2 was for BAFTA. Michael B. Jordan could have been number 2 for BAFTA. And if that's the case, then he's the easy pick here. Even if Chalamet was number 2 for BAFTA, though, he never made the speech. So I don't think it's even safe to say, oh, well, we should just predict who was number 2 for BAFTA. Also, we will never know who was number 2 for BAFTA. There's only probably one or two people in the world who know what number 2 for BAFTA was, unless you want to go and pull every single British voter and try to figure it out yourself. So I really do think, despite only winning SAG, I think Chalamet has 2 precursors and everyone else has 1. Some people don't even have any, but I do think Michael B. Jordan, having won the most recent award and having won it in such a big way, and just seeing that Sinners is kind of catching this late surge of momentum, similar to your Codas, your Green Books, your Moonlights, but even to a higher degree than those films that won Best Picture. Again, if you're picking Sinners for to win Best Picture, you should lock in Michael B. Jordan. But even without the Sinners Best Picture, I think Sinners has been kind of just rising in momentum so strong that I think Michael B. Jordan will kind of just come along for the wave. Even if it doesn't win Best Picture, I think it's still just getting a surge of momentum. And it's another one of those things where even though I might not be predicting Sinners for Best Picture at the end of the day, I still think it's going to win at least one award. And right now, it's not certain whether Wunmi Masaku or Delroy Lindo will win. But I do think there's a world Michael B. Jordan is the best case for representation for that acting ensemble. So it's kind of just weighing all the options out. And I think ultimately, Michael B. Jordan, all signs point to a win, even though he would be the first person to win with a sole SAG win. He's also the critics leader, him and Chalamet, I believe. I believe he's snuck ahead of Chalamet, or he's right below Chalamet for critics prizes. So he has still been relevant. He's still been around all season winning stuff, just not these big televised awards. But again, nobody here won BAFTA. If there was someone here who won BAFTA, I'd probably just lock them in, because no one wins on a lone SAG. But the thing is, none of these guys won BAFTA. So I think we have to look at SAG. SAG and BAFTA kind of dictate most of the awards here. While Chalamet has Gold Globes and Critics' Choice, there's also the question everyone's going to be asking, does Chalamet's comments about ballet and opera hurt him? No, it does not, because that kind of controversy arose the last day of voting. There might have been maybe 2 or 3% of the voters who saw that and changed their vote because of it. But I think if you were going to vote for Chalamet, you were going to vote for him anyway, or you would have already voted for him before this controversy came out. I don't think the controversy changed a lot of minds. There were probably a few people who were 50-50 that after the controversy were like, you know what, I'm just going to go with the other person. But I don't think enough people had swayed from Chalamet. But here's the thing. I don't think Chalamet would have won either way. I do think Marty Supreme is a strong film, but Sinners and One Battle are even stronger. So I'm going to go with Michael B. Jordan. But I could see a world where Chalamet still pulls it off. I could see a world where even Wagner Moura or Ethan Hawke have a very shocking kind of come from behind win, because Wagner Moura wasn't up for the BAFTA. Who's to say if he would have won? Now, I know that's a weird logic to play, but really the BAFTA is not as embracing of films that are not European in the international category. So they were just not very big on Secret Agent. If that was a more, universal voting body and more international voting body, and we have seen the Academy has become much more international, I think there's a good chance Wagner Moura has at least a top 3 bid for Best Actor here. I think right now I would probably put him number 3 behind Jordan and Chalamet. But the truth of the matter is, Jordan winning that SAG award, that's kind of what I keep circling back to. I think that's going to put him over the edge. Another category that I want to put in this category of could be an upset, but I'm pretty locked in on, is Doc Short. Doc Short doesn't really have any precursors. Everyone's been saying it's all the empty rooms. The only thing with the shorts is that, the shorts, there are no precursors. So like there's really no way to gauge really what's out in front. I do think all the empty rooms, just based on the buzz, based on the consensus, is probably the safe one to pick, and it's the one I'm going to pick. But I do think with the shorts, we have to take all these with a grain of salt because this is just kind of groupthink at this point. I think the shorts could go any which way. I think if you're playing it smart, you just pick the three favorites in the short film categories. But having seen them all, I feel even better about all the empty rooms being a favorite. It was my favorite, and sometimes I just go with whatever my favorite is probably the front runner. That's kind of what happened last year as well. Even though I had Incident at number one, my number two short, the Girl in the Orchestra, was really great. And I was like, you know what? This feels like the winner. And I think just watching these five, all the empty rooms, felt like the winner. So it's the one I'm going to pick. Another category that I think is so much closer than people are leading to believe is best sound. Now, this one, the safe pick is to go with F1. F1 is still the front runner. F1 won the AMPS, the BAFTA, the CAS, the CCA. But here's the thing. It didn't win a single MPSE award, which is the Sound Editors Guild. It did not win a single award at the Sound Editors. Who won? Sinners, Frankenstein, Syrah, all won sound awards at that guild, but not F1. And that's what's scaring me. That's what's making me think, of all these tech categories, everyone's like, okay, Frankenstein's going to get those three. One Battle's going to get those two. At the end of the day, is Sinners really not going to get a single tech nomination except for score? And that's kind of what's not sitting right with me, is it is such a technical film. And I'm just thinking, casting doesn't really count because I wouldn't consider casting one of the tech categories. But if we're looking at the techs, if it's not going to win cinematography, it's not going to win makeup, it's not going to win costumes, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what could Sinners win? I think Sinners is going to pick up a surprise win somewhere. It might be Delroy Lindo. It could be Wunmi Masaku if, you're not already predicting her as the front runner. But you know what? I think this is where Sinners could surprise, because until F1 started winning, BAFTA and CAS, I think the front runner was Sinners because everyone was like, it's a film about music. And I think the matter is, like, a lot of people, despite F1 having a lot of passion to get its nomination, and I think a lot of its nomination was based on technical merit, I think there are a lot of people who are like, damn, F1 took the spot of so many more deserving films. Like, it was just an accident in particular. Even Weapons being another film that was kind of on the bubble that people just seem to have more passion for. I think the international voting body does like F1 maybe even more than Sinners in some respects, just because it was such an international hit. But you know what? I just see a world where Sinners surprises here. And you know what? I'm going to go No Guts, No Glory, because why not? Let's have some fun. I'm picking Sinners here just because I think there is going to be a tech that Sinners wins. I think you have to play it safe. If you want to play it safe, that's okay. And I think that would be picking F1. But I can't play it safe here. I want to have some fun. And I do think Sinners is still a worthy sound winner. The biggest prize at MPSE went to Frankenstein. So I think if you want to see an even crazier upset, if you want to bet on something in the betting markets that's going to make you a lot of money, you might want to bet on Frankenstein, because Frankenstein's the one that has a real case here. But I think Sinners having won 2 MPSE awards, and F1 not winning a single one, that was enough for me to be like, you know what? Maybe F1 is not as strong as we thought. Now, there is the argument, though, that it is the overall voting body. We're not just looking at the guilds when it comes to the Academy. And the overall voting body is probably just going to see cars going vroom, vroom and do the Top Gun Maverick thing and giving F1 the win. But I just personally don't necessarily see it. I just feel like Sinners, the passion for that film is so strong. And when people see all these on the ballot, they're going to say, well, there were a lot of cars, but this one, it was all about the music. The sound was so great. And there's also all this gunshot stuff happening in the third act. I don't know. I think Sinners here is a legitimate case to surprise. Again, this would be an upset. F1 is still the favorite. So if you're playing it safe, don't blame me if you don't pick F1 and F1 wins. I'm still thinking F1 could probably win. I think it's likely now. Now I'm talking myself out of it. But Sinners is a very viable upset. So I'm just going to have some fun. It wouldn't be a fun video for you to watch out there if I didn't have some fun here. So I'm picking sound going to Sinners. And another one that I think is much closer than we want to believe is documentary feature. I think everyone wants to say The Perfect Neighbor is going to win, because Perfect Neighbor has kind of been the big popular pick all year. It won the Critics' Choice. It's just a film that a lot of people have been buzzy about since Sundance. And it was nominated for pretty much everything. BAFTA, Critics' Choice, CEH, DGA, PGA. But it only won Critics' Choice. It didn't win the DGA. It didn't win the PGA. It didn't win BAFTA. It didn't win Cinema Eye. Cinema Eye went to Come See Me in the Good Light, but Come See Me in the Good Light doesn't really have any other precursors. The one I'm looking at, though, as the big upset here, and the one I'm actually going to pick, is Mr. Nobody against Putin. Now, last year I made the mistake. I was like, you know what? Porcelain War is going to surprise No Other Choice, because No Other Choice is controversial. And sorry, not No Other Choice, No Other Land. No Other Land was controversial. So I was like, you know what? It's not going to win. And it did. It won. It was not as controversial. There was a big support behind it. But I don't think The Perfect Neighbor has that kind of grassroots support that No Other Land did. I think No Other Land had a really urgent message, and Perfect Neighbor has an amazing message as well. But when I think about the international voters, I think the international voters are going to be more akin to vote for the movie that's criticizing Putin, that's criticizing Russia, that's all about this Ukrainian war. We saw it happen plenty of times in the past, where this Ukraine war documentary, that's kind of the hot thing with this category now. And The Perfect Neighbor, I think there are going to be people internationally who don't necessarily realize how important The Perfect Neighbor is, because again, these are very domestic issues that The Perfect Neighbor is getting at, which is crime, racist crime, which is very much more prevalent. It's prevalent everywhere, but I feel like it's such an American, a documentary that is going to resonate much more with American audiences. Where Mr. Nobody Against Putin, I feel like, is a more universal film. Now, the thing going against Mr. Nobody Against Putin is that it's in a different language, so we tend to see English language films win more often than not in this category. But I look at Navalny a few years ago. Navalny was a very similar film to Mr. Nobody Against Putin, and that did just fine. So I really do think Mr. Nobody Against Putin, it was my favorite of the category when I watched him. I think it's just a very interesting documentary in and of itself, and it won the BAFTA. And I think the BAFTA is very telling, much more telling than Critics' Choice. And when you put these two films up against each other, Mr. Nobody Against Putin and Perfect Neighbor, Mr. Nobody Against Putin has one win, Perfect Neighbor has zero. And I just think that is pointing my direction toward Mr. Nobody Against Putin. I definitely could see a world where the Perfect Neighbor wins anyway, because it's the most popular one. Kind of like last year. I talked myself out of No Other Land, and then No Other Land won anyway, and I was smacking my forehead like I should have just picked it. But here, I'm kind of doing the same thing, but I feel much more confident in Mr. Nobody Against Putin here winning than I did Porcelain War winning last year. But documentary feature, I never get the nominations right, and I rarely get the win right. So if you want to play it safe, go Perfect Neighbor. But if you want to look at the stats, I think the stats are actually on Mr. Nobody Against Putin's side. I just think it's the documentary that I think has shown to win at the biggest group, which is BAFTA. And for me, that was enough to pick it. But now let's move on to the two categories that I'm calling the 50-50 prizes, meaning there is literally a coin flip. I might flip a coin to decide these winners, one of them being Best International Feature. And the tough thing is there's two nominees here that are also Best Picture nominees: Secret Agent, Sentimental Value. Sentimental Value has 9 nominations. Secret Agent only has 4. So I think the numbers point towards Sentimental Value. Sentimental Value also won the BAFTA. That is a huge thing. But there's the caveat that the BAFTA tends to prefer European films to other films from, like Brazil, for example, is a South American country. I think they're much more likely to award a European film than Secret Agent. Also because Sentimental Value performed very well at BAFTAs. But then again, Sentimental Value didn't get supporting actor for Stellan Skarsgård, which was supposed to be a lock, and it still won BAFTA. So I think that shows that Sentimental Value is just strong. It's not just because of a BAFTA bias. So I'm leaning Sentimental Value, but Secret Agent has Critics' Choice, has Golden Globe. And I also think because they're watching both films, I think you're going to have people who are just going to embrace the artisticness and the artistry of Secret Agent a little bit more than Sentimental Value. But then you're going to have kind of the more, old-fashioned Oscar voter, and I don't want to say Sentimental Value is old-fashioned, but it's a little less challenging than Secret Agent in its form. So I think your more conventional voters are going to go Sentimental Value. I think a lot of your more international voters who are also kind of more cinephile coded are going to go Secret Agent. So it really comes down to just where the passion is. And I feel like the passion is more in the Secret Agent's camp than Sentimental Value's camp. I think every time we think Sentimental Value is going to perform big, it kind of farts a little bit. That's the bad word to use, but I really do think like Stellan Skarsgård, everyone was like, oh, he's going to win the BAFTA easy, and he didn't. I do think there's still a world it can be Sentimental Value. And again, I'm going back and forth, coin flip, coin flip, coin flip. But I think at the end of the day, I want to have more fun. I know last year Brazil won big, and I just think a lot of that had to do with Emilia Perez really, really fumbling the ball at the last minute. The thing here, Sentimental Value hasn't really fumbled the ball per se. There's no real controversy here, but I'm not seeing the passion for Sentimental Value that I'm seeing for Secret Agent. And I think a big key to that was the casting award. I think the fact that Sentimental Value, despite not having a huge cast, had 4 acting nominations but didn't get casting, where Secret Agent only had 1 acting nomination but got casting. It's showing that, they're looking at Secret Agent in a broader lens. They're really looking at every single aspect of Secret Agent and really awarding it. But here's the thing, Secret Agent doesn't have a screenplay nomination. Even It Was Just an Accident has a screenplay nomination. Secret Agent doesn't. So that's also now kind of talking me out of Secret Agent. I keep flip-flopping. I need to make a decision. I'm going to flip a coin. I'm going to do it. Why not? I'm going to flip a coin. I'm going to flip a coin just because I truly do not know. Isn't that crazy? I truly do not know which to go. So hold on. Coin, flip. Here we go. And we're going to have heads be Secret Agent and tails be Sentimental Value. Here we go. We're flipping. What is that? Tails is sentimental value. All right, we're locking in sentimental value. I could not decide. We're going to go sentimental value there. That's just how we're going. But let's move on to another 50-50 coin flip. This time I'm not actually going to flip a coin. I'm actually going to talk it out, which is best picture. I know everyone's like, whoa, best picture. It's kind of daunting. We still have short films to present later, but I just want to talk about this now because I think this is a very 50-50 race. It's Sinners. It's one battle after another. Which one's going to come out on top? I think you have to look at a few things. Precursors. Both have the precursors. No film has ever won ACE, SAG, and WGA. I believe those are the three, and lost Best Picture. Sinners has all three of those. But no film has ever won BAFTA, Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, and PGA, and DGA, and lost Best Picture either, which is what One Battle After Another has. I believe that's the case. I think maybe there are a few exceptions, maybe like La La Land. But the difference is La La Land didn't get nominated for SAG Ensemble. One Battle did. So no film has ever won BAFTA, Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, PGA, DGA, and had a SAG nomination and lost. So that already kind of defeats the stats. Either way, there's going to be a stat broken. But here's the thing. One Battle winning BAFTA, Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, and PGA, that's like the four big precursors. That is it. When we do our charts on Picture This, those are the four columns, and One Battle has won every single one. So I think it's just definitely a very sturdy frontrunner. But here's the thing about Sinners. Sinners just won the most recent one, which is SAG Ensemble. And SAG Ensemble got everyone on that stage hyping up Sinners. SAG was such a Sinners-heavy night, and if people are thinking about recency, that is the most recent thing they saw before they voted. Also, just looking at the other precursors, like Sinners has been right there. And while it hasn't won anywhere, it's still been surprising. Like the BAFTAs, we thought Sinners was going to win maybe one award at most, and it picked up screenplay when it wasn't predicted to. It picked up supporting actress when it wasn't predicted to. Sinners has been surprising, and I think every time we underestimate Sinners, it kind of comes back even stronger and kind of surprises us even more. And I think the ultimate surprise there would be winning Best Picture. And here's what's also convincing me a little bit more on Sinners is that when we look at these close races in the past, La La Land and Moonlight kind of came out of nowhere. Everyone was still pretty convinced. I think like 90% of people were predicting La La Land on the night. Green Book and Roma, a lot of people were predicting Roma. Parasite in 1917, a lot of people were predicting 1917. Even Coda and Power of the Dog, a lot of people were on Coda's trail, but never, the fact that we're talking about this being a potential upset in 50-50 already shows that Sinners is stronger at this point before the Oscars than Green Book, than 1917 was, because these are films that were the frontrunner that got upset, and we weren't necessarily talking like it was 1917 and Parasite going into the night. We were saying Parasite could have a shot, but really 1917 has all the precursors. Here, I think it is so definitively neck and neck that we can't even say this is another Moonlight La La Land scenario, because also the counter to that is that all those years where we had upsets, the front runners showed weakness. La La Land started to lose some steam. It lost some big crucial awards. 1917, it didn't seem like it had that overwhelming passion, but here, One Battle After Another still also has that passion too. And I think that's what's hard about this race is that Sinners is rising in passion, but One Battle After Another isn't losing the passion either. The only spot that One Battle After Another showed weakness at was SAG, and it still won supporting actor at SAG, and it still got nominated for SAG Ensemble. So was it really just a bad night for One Battle, or was it a strong night for Sinners? And in the case of even last year, Honora didn't win a single SAG prize, I don't believe. So it's really one of those questions of like, is One Battle After Another weaker than Sinners is stronger? And I think that's the big debate. And ultimately, I think Sinners is strong, but I don't think it's stronger than One Battle After Another is weaker. I think One Battle After Another hasn't lost passion. There are going to be people who are going to be so passionate for Sinners, but also think about this way this preferential ballot system works. Everyone's ranking their nominees, right? I don't think many people are putting One Battle After Another all the way at the bottom. I think there are going to be people who put Sinners all the way at the bottom just because vampires aren't their thing, because they're probably a little racist, because they're more internationally minded, not as American minded, which I think could work against One Battle as well. But I think Paul Thomas Anderson is a little bit more internationally friendly than Ryan Coogler is, which is a terrible argument. And it makes me feel really bad to say out loud. But the truth of the matter is when you're looking at the voter demographic, I think there are going to be people who are turned off by the fact that Sinners is a horror film. I could see a lot more people putting Sinners at number 10 on their ballot than people putting One Battle After Another at number 10 on their ballot. I don't think it's going to happen a lot. I think Sinners and One Battle are going to get most of the number ones and number twos, but I do think if I'm looking at just the general, like 100 people, I think there are maybe 10 or 20 people who are like, Sinners just wasn't my thing. I'm not into all the horror stuff. I'm not into, these very like kind of underlying messagey racial films, which makes them look really bad, but at the same time, it's their opinion, and that's kind of what's going to dictate Sinners at the bottom. Whereas I haven't really heard anyone be like, yeah, One Battle After Another is not really my thing, because it is kind of the Oscar thing, right? It's a drama, it's got comedy, it's got action. Yes, there is a racial element, yes, there's a topical element, but also the Academy's not topical. You know, these are two topical films. It's just one has genre elements like horror that I think are going to knock it down a few pegs on a preferential ballot compared to One Battle After Another. But here's the thing. Every time I've underestimated Sinners, Sinners has come back stronger. So what I'm doing is I'm giving Sinners that surprise sound win. I'm considering the fact that Wunmi Mosaku, we'll get her to her in a sec, could win supporting actress. Like, I think Sinners is going to have a really strong night. I think this is a world where One Battle leaves with like 6 Oscars and Sinners leaves with 5. Like, I really do think they're going to sweep together the whole board. And you know what would be a beautiful thing is if these tied at the end of the night. I know with a preferential ballot, there's no potential for it to be a tie, but I'm not going to flip a coin. I'm going to go with the safe pick. I'm going to pick One Battle After Another, but I am going to say Sinners winning would not be surprising anymore. And if we're just looking at previous trends in previous past years, I think Coda had a surge of passion toward the end. I think Parasite had a surge of passion toward the end. Where did all these things start? SAG. And I think SAG is something to really look at. Sinners had a real surge. But the thing is, I don't think One Battle has gotten any knocks against it in the way that people were like, Power of the Dog, it's not as warm a film. 1917, it's a bit of a cold film. You know, there are all these docs. 1917 didn't get a single acting nomination. That's something to dock. One Battle After Another has 4 acting nominations. So I think the fact is One Battle After Another is not as weak as Sinners is strong. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to be going. I think the safe pick is One Battle After Another. That's going to be my pick. I think it would be really unprecedented for a film to get nominated for SAG and then win BAFTA Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, and PGA and lose. But here's the thing also, this is one of the longest award seasons ever. So there's also a chance that just because of time, people have had time to get bored, to be restless and say, you know what, I want to do something different. But the only thing is, I don't think people are necessarily going to turn their backs on One Battle After Another. If they love that movie, I think they're going to vote for it. They love Paul Thomas Anderson. I think Ryan Coogler is still not as much of like an overdue Oscar darling as Paul Thomas Anderson is, despite getting into Best Picture for Black Panther as well. This is going to be the closest race that we've seen for Best Picture in a long time. Again, the fact that we're calling it such a close race is already making it a closer race than Coda and Power of the Dog were, than 1917 and Parasite were, than Green Book and Roma were, than Moonlight and La La Land were. Moonlight was a true surprise. I don't think many people were predicting it. Some people were. Maddie Chapman, I'll give you credit. But I do think there are a lot of people now quite literally at like a 50.1, 49.9 split. And I think right now, I just have to continue the momentum that One Battle has had all season. The fact that it hasn't lost momentum gives me an inkling. Also, it's going to win editing and directing and screenplay, and I think that combo is very helpful to win editing, directing, and screenplay. Now, if Sinners picks up a surprise supporting win with Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan ends up happening, and maybe even Moonmi Masaku wins, if the 3 of them all win, Sinners is going to win. If you see Ryan Coogler win director, Sinners is going to win. There's these tells, kind of like how Anora last year, how we saw Sean Baker win time and time and time again. And we were like, oh, okay, so Nora's winning. I think that's the thing. When you see Sinners pick up a few surprise techs and maybe a surprise acting award, and then Ryan Coogler wins director, then I think you can call it. It's going to have a Parasite, Anora-like day. But I think until that is proven, I'm going to stick with the safe bet and go with One Battle After Another. I know that's boring, but that's how I'm going to go. Now, 2 WTF categories. I know we just talked about picture, but there's still 3 categories left. 2 of them are WTF. One of them is supporting actress, which is a 3-horse race. But I'm just going to talk about these next 2, which are the shorts. I'm going to start with live action short just because, again, we don't really have the precursors. So we're kind of going based on groupthink, but a lot of different groups are saying different things. I think the overall favorite right now on all the markets is 2 People Exchanging Saliva. Where I think 2 People Exchanging Saliva, which is my favorite short in this category, has weakness is the fact that it is an international short, meaning it's not in English. And sometimes with the shorts, picking the English language or no language films are safer bets. And it doesn't have a distributor like Netflix on its side, for example, like The Singers. So I do think we're looking at a 3-horse race here with A Friend of Dorothy, The Singers, and 2 People Exchanging Saliva. I think what it's going to come down to is just going to be which film feels the fullest, which film feels the most fulfilling, the richest. And I think that's 2 People Exchanging Saliva. I think at the end of the day, if they are actually watching all these films, that is just the most full film. That is the most depth you're going to get from any of these films. And it's kind of the coolest, most artistic. It's the most different. It's definitely the outlier here, where all the other ones are shot in color. This one's in black and white. This one's in a different language. This one has really interesting nuance and queer themes. You know, it has all these different things that all these other films don't have. Now, if they're going to go for the safe, just kind of charming film that everyone loves, it's going to be Friend of Dorothy because it makes us all smile. It's heartwarming. It might make you cry. I think that's a definite spoiler pick. definitely could happen. The Singers, another one where I just think Netflix backing it is super strong. It's also one of the shorter films. People are likely to just turn it on and watch it, have a good day, go about their day. For me, though, it is really between Friend of Dorothy and Two People Exchanging Saliva. And I just think when you watch them all, if you watch them all, I just think Two People Exchanging Saliva feels richer. But here's the question also. If you don't watch any of these, which we know the Academy has to watch all of them, but let's be honest, a lot of them aren't going to watch all of them and they're still going to vote. Which title are you going to vote for? And I think ultimately, Two People Exchanging Saliva is the most interesting title of the bunch. I think that or Jane Austen's period drama, which I don't think has a shot right now. So I think also based on the name, I think Two People Exchanging Saliva makes a lot of sense. The only thing holding me back is the fact that it is international, but I think last year with I Am Not a Robot winning, I think that kind of made me feel a little bit safer that an international film can win in this category. So I'm going to go with it, even though I think it could go one of three ways. Another film category that I think could go one of five ways is animated short. And this is another one that the consensus seems to be Butterfly. If you want to win your polls, if you want to play it safe, Butterfly is your move because that's the front runner on all the polls. But for me, the stat that I can't shake is that for the last 20 years, every single short that has won Best Animated Short has either been in English or has had no language. The only film here that has subtitles is Butterfly. Now, the pro here is that it's an emotional story. It's got a great artistic side because it's painted, all the painting and the animation. Also, keeping in mind that this is a Holocaust story. This is a World War II story. This is themes that people like to award. But I think about that short Letter to a Pig from a few years ago, which was kind of the front runner, and then got beat by the cute animals short film, War is Over, which I thought was really bad. This case scenario, there's a cute animal film that I actually think is my favorite. And most of my friends who I've talked to have said, you know what? I really love the short about the cute little bear in the tree. And that's Forever Green. Forever Green right now is ranked number 5 on so many betting sites. It is ranked number 5 anywhere you look on every list. And I think that's a little, I don't want to call anyone dumb, but I just think that's a little bit of an oversight. The fact that time and time again, we see international shorts lose this category, and the shorts we see win are cute animal shorts. And not every cute animal short has won. Robin didn't win. There are some animal shorts that don't. But the fact that this cute animal short that is not in any language, not English or in an international language, it just has no language. The fact that that is here and it feels very reminiscent of Pixar and it feels cute and people are going to watch it and feel sweet. That's the thing. You watch The Girl Who Cried Pearls, it's not really a feel-good film. Retirement Plan, it's cute, it makes you feel good, but it's not the most impressive animation. Butterfly, I would be predicting it if it was in English. Literally, if it was in English, I would be predicting Butterfly. And Butterfly might be the safe pick. And I think if you want to just win your poll, you're probably going to pick Butterfly. But for me, ever since I saw it, Forever Green has been the one that I just think is being most underestimated right now. So I'm going to go No Guts, No Glory here. I'm going to pick Forever Green. The one I don't think has any shot is The Three Sisters. I think that one is just kind of, not necessarily the Academy's cup of tea. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it'll win. You know what? At the end of the day, maybe The Three Sisters will win, and I'll be shocked by the end of the day. But I think Forever Green, there's enough impressive animation. It kind of fits that War is Over template, but I think it's actually much better than War is Over. It's a sweet little story about a bear. There's going to be the religious voters who vote for it for that angle. There's going to be people who don't vote for it because of the religious angle. But then again, you have to have watched the film to even know there isn't a religious angle to Forever Green. And that's another question, like I asked last time. If you're going based on the title, which one are you picking? And I think the two potential ones are Girl Who Cried Pearls and maybe like Butterfly, because Butterfly, they're like animals. But Forever Green, I think, is an interesting enough title. I don't know. Again, this is a big upset pick. I'm picking Forever Green, which is the number 5 predicted win here. If you put a few bucks on it on any betting markets, you're making a lot of money if Forever Green wins. So that's why I'm doing it too, because I kind of want to have some fun. I don't want to necessarily follow the convention. I think the safe bet, you pick all 3 of the front runners, all the empty rooms, Two People Exchanging Saliva and Butterfly, and the chances are you're going to win at least 2 of those 3. But I don't want to play for 2 for 3. I want to play for all 3. And this is where I'm going to predict the upset. I know my heart is saying Forever Green. My gut is saying Forever Green. My head is saying Butterfly, but I have to let my head go and go with my heart and my gut here. Forever Green is going to be that pick. So we have one category left, saving it for the end, hoping to keep this under an hour. Probably won't fall quite under an hour, maybe a little longer, but we're going to talk about supporting actress because this is the hardest award for me of the night. I know a lot of eyes are saying Amy Madigan's a front runner because she won SAG. Great. Okay. Yes, you can have that argument. That's exactly what I said about Michael B. Jordan. The difference, Michael B. Jordan is in Sinners, which has record-breaking amount of nominations ever in the history of the awards. Weapons has 1 nomination, and it's for Amy Madigan. The last time someone won this award, having only won for being the only film in its category was Vicky Cristina Barcelona. It was the last time that happened. So I do think Amy Madigan winning for Weapons when Weapons is not nominated for a single other award. I mean, we kind of said it, right? When we watched the awards came in and we saw that Weapons was not shortlisted for makeup and Weapons did not get into casting, Weapons did not get into picture. If Weapons was in picture or casting or makeup, one of those three, I'd be like, all right, done, Amy Madigan. But the problem is it doesn't have any other nominations, and that is super, super, super unprecedented. But here's the thing. What is the alternative? Because the other alternatives you have is Wunmi Masaku and Tiana Taylor. Tiana Taylor won the Globe. Wunmi Masaku won BAFTA. And that's another kind of thing where you have to kind of look and you have to debate, okay, which is stronger, BAFTA or Golden Globes? BAFTA is probably a little stronger than Golden Globes. So the question now is Wunmi Masaku, Amy Madigan. The Sinner's Passion is hotter than Weapons, but also Amy Madigan being the only nominee from Weapons, is that going to help her? Because now she can go full force campaigning only for herself, the Weapons team getting behind her and only her, whereas Sinners is also campaigning Michael B. Jordan. It's also campaigning for Best Picture. You know, there's a lot of other awards Sinners is trying to get. Is Wunmi Masaku going to be on their priority list? But then again, BAFTA, which is typically, I'll say it right now, a bit more racially skewed toward white people when they voted for Wunmi Masaku to win this award. But then again, Amy Madigan wasn't nominated. But Amy Madigan not getting nominated, does that hurt her? And I think it does. So all these things to say, I actually pulled up a chart where I looked at every single pro and con I could think of for this Oscar race. So for Amy Madigan, the pros, obviously, the SAG win. SAG is the most recent ceremony. That's huge. It's the last ceremony before they voted. She's also the most transformative. When we look at transformative performances, she is the most transformed. People love performances with a lot of makeup, where someone who you know it looks like someone else, doesn't look like themselves, you know, all that stuff. Then you look at the acting veteran. She's the acting veteran. These other two are a bit more newcomer. And I think there's something to be said about Amy Madigan kind of putting in her time. A lot of people are voting for her, even if they don't like Weapons, because they like her. Critics leader. She's the critics leader. Sometimes that can be a tiebreaker. When you looked at Ryan Castleman's video, the tiebreaker came down to who is leading the critics polls, and Amy Madigan has won the most critics awards. But critics don't vote in the Academy, but they do set the tone sometimes for the Academy. Now SAG, this is the big thing. SAG has only not lined up with Oscars once since 2007, and it was in 2018 with Emily Blunt for Beale Street Could Talk. So Beale Street Could Talk, Regina King did not win SAG for that, but she wasn't even nominated because there was something with screeners. They didn't get the screeners in on time, and Emily Blunt won for Quiet Place. But Emily Blunt wasn't up for the Oscar. So I think that's just a weird anomaly of a year, but every other year since 2007, from 2008 all the way to 2024 or 2025, every single person who has won SAG for supporting actress has won again at the Oscars. You would have to go all the way back to 2007 or 2006 with Tilda Swinton for Michael Clayton to find an example. That's not 2018 where this happened. But here are the cons. She's in a horror film. Sometimes horror bias is a thing. She's also the only nominee for her movie. As I said, this has not happened since Vicky Cristina Barcelona in 2008 with Penelope Cruz. But she also has the least amount of screen time. And sometimes that's kind of the deal breaker, is like, oh, well, she was in more of the movie than her. But I also think this is kind of a void argument because, to be fair, I think Aunt Gladys is the takeaway. When you leave Weapons, she's the one you're thinking about the most, and her screen time's all at the end. So I think that's kind of a net con right there. But also, not nominated for BAFTA. I think that's a huge, huge, huge fault for Amy Madigan. Now, the pros for Tiana Taylor, she won the Globe. She's also in the Best Picture frontrunner, and if you're predicting one battle, it would make sense to get 2 wins for acting. But one of the cons is that a Best Picture winner has only won both supporting awards 3 times. 1953 for From Here to Eternity, I believe, was the film. 1961, which was West Side Story, and then 2022, which was Everything Everywhere All at Once, when Jamie Lee Curtis and Ke Huy Quan won. So if One Battle After Another was to win for Tiana Taylor and Sean Penn, it would only be the 4th time ever that a film that wins Best Picture wins both supporting actors and not a lead actor. So then you could maybe predict Leo, or you're just going to go off of the fact that this would only happen for a 4th time. But I think that's a pretty big stat. I think that's actually a pretty big knock against Tiana Taylor winning. But here's the thing. She is the only one to get all Globe, Critics' Choice, BAFTA, and SAG nominations. She's the only one to get all of them. Wunmi Masaku, I believe, didn't get Globe. And then Amy Madigan did not get BAFTA. So the cons also is that the Globes were the earliest. So I think of all the televised wins, Wunmi Mosaku and Amy Madigan have gotten to make speeches more recently than Tiana Taylor. I think Tiana Taylor is kind of my third place here in terms of wins. If we're going head, heart, gut, my head is saying Madigan right now. My heart is saying Tiana Taylor. My gut is saying Wunmi Mosaku, which brings me to Wunmi Mosaku, who won the BAFTA. That's huge. And winning the BAFTA in a notoriously white-skewed voting body is also huge because it's showing that even the people who are not loving Sinners, who didn't give it Best Picture, who didn't give it Best Director, still found a way to give her an award for her performance, which is huge. She also has the most screen time of the three. Again, I don't think screen time really matters here because all of them are around the same percentage of screen time. But she's also the most consistent in her movie in terms of like Tiana Taylor's really in the front of the movie. Amy Madigan's kind of toward the back of her movie, whereas Wunmi Mosaku is kind of spread throughout her movie. That sounded kind of graphic. I didn't mean it to be. But Sinners is also a top 2 film for Best Picture. So if you're looking at Amy Madigan and Wunmi Mosaku, people like Sinners a lot more than Weapons, at least in terms of the Academy's voting body. Sinners is also very strong at SAG. It just won a lot at SAG right before this award. But one of the cons is that Sinners won all these awards at SAG, but Wunmi Mosaku didn't win at SAG. Amy Madigan did. So even though SAG went so heavy for Sinners, they still didn't give it to Wunmi Mosaku, which is kind of the inverse of BAFTA, where BAFTA didn't go crazy for Sinners, but still gave Wunmi Mosaku the win. But you would think if Wunmi Mosaku was going to win the Oscar, then Sinners winning SAG Ensemble and Michael B. Jordan winning Best Actor, you would have thought Wunmi Mosaku would have come along for the ride. And that's where I'm a little worried about Wunmi Mosaku winning here. And I think the last time a film won 2 acting prizes and not Best Picture was 3 Billboards with Sam Rockwell and Frances McDormand. So if she were to win and Michael B. Jordan were to win and Sinners were to lose Best Picture, that would be the first time since 2017, almost 10 years since that happened. She also wasn't nominated at Globes. The horror bias is also real there. And ultimately, SAG was the most recent thing, and she didn't win at SAG. So I think when looking at these pros and cons, I think there's a lot of pros for both Wunmi Mosaku and Amy Madigan. The question is now, which con is the bigger con? Is it the fact that Amy Madigan is a sole nominee and not nominated at BAFTA? Or is it the fact that Wunmi Mosaku, in a night where Sinners got so much love, she didn't get love at SAG, and the last time a film won 2 acting prizes not without Best Picture was 3 Billboards? That one I'm not as concerned about. But I honestly think, at the end of the day, if we're looking at passion, I think Sinners has a lot of passion. But Sinners having a lot of passion could mean that those who are passionate about Sinners say, you know what, for this category, we'll give it to Amy. Just because, also, if you're a big fan of Sinners, you're probably a big horror fan. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who say, you know what, I'm giving Sinners so many awards, but you know where I can spread the love? Amy Madigan, because it's another performance I really loved, and people just love Amy Madigan. I also think reading all these, anonymous ballads, a lot of people are saying, well, we don't really like Weapons, but she's amazing. It's Amy Madigan. I worked with her. I love her. That's the thing. Amy Madigan has had time to prepare for this. She's had 40, 50 years of a career to be able to build to this moment. So I really do think all the cards are in one of those 3 favors, but I think more cards, if we have a deck of cards and one has all cards and 1 joker and one has 2 jokers, I don't know what metaphor I'm making. Either way, I'm going to go with, this is another one where I can flip a coin. My gut is saying Wunmi. My heart is saying Tiana. My head is saying Amy. I've already taken some no guts, no glory predictions, so let me play it a little safer here. I know it's going to be mad. It's going to make you all mad, but I'm mad for Madigan. I'm going Amy Madigan here. I just think when you look at it as well, really the difference maker here for me, having now talked it all out, is that usually we don't see much of a split between SAG and BAFTA. Usually, if you're predicting the BAFTA winners, you should pick all the BAFTA winners. If you're picking the SAG winners, you should just pick all the SAG winners. The thing is, we can't pick all the BAFTA winners because Robert Aramayo is not nominated this year. He might be next year. More on that in another video. But because he's not there, then it's really a question of like, okay, if we're going to go with a quartet, I'm going to go with the SAG quartet over the BAFTA quartet because the BAFTA quartet is literally impossible. So I'm going to go with the SAG quartet. I think it's a safe thing to do. If you're predicting the other 3 SAG winners, you should just predict the 4th because chances are you're going to get at least 3 out of the 4 right. And ultimately, that's what I'm going for with these acting prizes being so up in the air. I'm just looking for 3 out of the 4. So I'm predicting Michael B. Jordan, Jessie Buckley, Sean Penn, and Amy Madigan. That was your SAG 4. That's going to be the case here. And because I'm not predicting Sinners for Best Picture, I don't think it's likely that Sinners will win 2 acting prizes and lose Best Picture. So I think I'm just playing it a little safer and saying, you know what, Sinners will win a Best Actor prize. Hamnet will win a Best Actress. Sean Penn will win One Battle After Another, an actor prize, and then we have Amy Madigan as this fun like wild card fourth, kind of like Kieran Culkin was last year. Real Pain wasn't nominated; he was just kind of there as another acting representative for the three other films, being Enora, Brutalist, Emilia Perez. So I think the fact that I'm kind of spreading the wealth a little bit is probably the smart move. So ultimately, I'm going with the front runner. I'm going Amy Madigan. She is the statistical front runner. So if you want to win your polls, that's probably the best bet. So let me go through one more time, just recap all my winners here, just so you can rest easy. Picture, I'm predicting One Battle After Another. One Battle After Another is kind of the favorite. Sinners is definitely looking for an upset there. Director, I'm predicting One Battle After Another. The favorite is One Battle After Another, Paul Thomas Anderson. Best actor, I'm predicting Michael B. Jordan. He is the front runner as well. Best actress, I'm predicting Jessie Buckley. She is the front runner as well. Supporting actor, I'm predicting Sean Penn. He is the frontrunner for supporting actor as well. For best supporting actress, I'm predicting Amy Madigan. She is also the frontrunner for best supporting actress. For original screenplay, I'm predicting the frontrunner in Sinners. For adapted screenplay, I'm predicting the frontrunner with One Battle After Another. For animated feature, I'm predicting the frontrunner with K-pop Demon Hunters. For international feature, the frontrunner is Sentimental Value. My coin flip did allow me to predict Sentimental Value, but ultimately I do think it really could be Secret Agent. And if you want to get some cred points, I could definitely see you switching that one. It's my favorite film in that category, so I would go for it, but I'm going to go with Sentimental Value there. For documentary feature, the favorite is The Perfect Neighbor, but this is where I go differently. I'm predicting Mr. Nobody Against Putin. For documentary short, the favorite is also what I'm predicting, which is All the Empty Rooms. Best live action short, the favorite is also what I'm predicting, Two People Exchanging Saliva. Animated short, the favorite here is Butterfly. I am going with the stats that Butterfly has no shot at winning because it's not in the English language, and I'm predicting Forever Green, which is a long shot, but I wanted to make one crazy no guts, no glory prediction here. Best casting, I'm going with the frontrunner Sinners, but really, what is a frontrunner? Because we've never seen that category before. Then all these tech awards. Cinematography, I'm going with the frontrunner One Battle After Another. Costume design, going with the frontrunner Frankenstein. Film editing, going with the front runner One Battle After Another. Makeup, going with the front runner in Frankenstein. Production design, going with the front runner Frankenstein. Original score, going with the front runner Sinners. Original song, going with the front runner Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters. Avatar, I'm going with the front runner. Sorry, for visual effects, I'm going with front runner Avatar. And then for best sound, this is where the front runner is F1, but I'm making another ballsy pick, and I'm going to say Sinners wins best sound. So of those wins, only 3 huge surprise upsets I'm predicting. I'm predicting Forever Green. I'm predicting Mr. Nobody Against Putin. I'm predicting Sinners. But also I would say Secret Agent, Sentimental Value is tight. I would say the supporting actress 3 is tight. I would say Best Picture is tight. So really a lot of close races, and that's going to be really, really fun to see. Originally, I was going to do a live stream during the Oscars, but I'll be real. I'm leaving town next week for the rest of the year. I'm starting my new job. Not a new job, but I'm going back to my job, my next contract with my job. So I want to enjoy the Oscars with my family and just chatting with y'all on the Discord. But if you want to hear my thoughts, go to the Discord because I'll be there chatting about the Oscars. I also want to be able to call my girlfriend during the Oscars and talk about it with her. So I've decided I will not be doing a live stream. Maybe after the Oscars, I might get on here and do a short little stream. But if not, there's still plenty of stuff coming out, including Monday. I'm going to be getting my list ready for my Oscar predictions for next year because I think it's a fun video I do every year. And then I will hopefully get that posted around Tuesday. But I will also be recording an episode of Picture This very soon where I cover all 10 of the Best Picture nominees with Chad. Then we got a World of Worlds framework coming out soon. Maddie Chapman and I getting to do that. And tomorrow, or today I should say, because I'm recording this Saturday night, but Sunday, right after this, you can go watch our draft day for Oscar snubs right before the Oscars themselves. If you want a pre-show treat, go watch that draft day. We're going to time it so it ends right before the Oscars. So if you have time to just sit back and listen to us talk about some of the most egregious snubs of history, you can go find that there here on the DYL Pickle Movie Network a little later today. This should be coming out early in the morning for you all to see bright and early, to sit down with your newspapers, fill in your final ballots. My relatives, I know this is the video you watch every year, so I hope I did you proud there, and I hope I helped convince you some wins there. So thank you for that. I know I didn't circle any of my winners in all my discussion, but I hope you were able to follow with the conversation when I was picking. Otherwise, thank you so much, and happy Oscar night! Woohoo! It's the Super Bowl. It's Christmas. It's all the things. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.